Hey, buddy.
Hi, guys. Well, from beautiful Salt Lake City, Utah,
It's Thank God I'm Atheist.
the podcast,
I'm Frank Feldman.
and I'm Dan Beecher.
And coming up today, we're going to talk about... What are we talking about?
Groups. We're going to talk about groupthink and individual think. And what do you think?
What do you think about groupthink?
There's this whole thing about
Thinking like a group.
well, and just where does it come from? How much of it is it beneficial? And stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows, Dan?
The shadow knows.
Wow. That's a reference.
It's quite a reference, isn't it?
That's
That
to our
one's,
octogenarian listeners.
there are septuagenarians that remember that too. That one's for you guys, old folks. All right.
Alrighty. Dan.
Yeah. What do you got?
This comes from the not surprised file. However, still outrageous.
Okay. Good.
Oh God. Oklahoma State Senator has been charged with 3 felonies after child prostitution investigation.
Of course.
He was caught red-handed with
dear.
a 17-year-old male prostitute in a motel.
Can I just make a guess here?
What?
This is going to be one of those super anti-LGBT conservatives.
Well, he's definitely pro law and order.
Okay.
So he's definitely done that. He is a conservative.
Yeah.
So yes, the article doesn't get into has he sponsored any anti-LGBT stuff, but it's kind of a safe
It's
bet
part and parcel. He's
that
probably Christian, and
he's definitely Christian.
Okay.
Oh yeah. No, the man in fact had trained. Initially, he went to the Oklahoma Bible College or something like that. Let me see if I can find that. I'm going out of order from what I had planned.
You didn't go to Oral Roberts? That's the big one in Oklahoma, isn't it?
Oral Roberts? No,
He went to
did not.
Anal Roberts instead. Ding, ding, da, ding. Gay jokes.
Who knows, Dan? He studied to go do mission work. That's what he went to college for.
Oh.
And
You can go to college for that?
in Oklahoma, you can.
Wow.
You go to a Bible college. You sure
Hooray.
can. He wanted to do missionary work in Uganda, but he decided instead to go into the oil and gas industry.
Well, that's probably wise.
Yeah. But is he super Christian? Yes.
Yes, he is.
Yes, he is. Nonetheless, the details of the whole thing are really
You
awful.
said prostitution.
Yeah.
He's paying this boy.
Yeah, so the kid had solicited himself on Craigslist.
Oh, my.
So for his girlfriend, however, was concerned.
Whose girlfriend?
The boys,
Oh.
17-year-olds, because he had told her that he was gonna get paid tonight, and she feared that he was still involved in illegal narcotics, and so she went to the boy's dad, and that's how this whole thing ended up going down.
Holy
They
shit.
didn't know that he was going to be hooking up with a state senator.
Oh, God.
Right? They had no clue about that whole thing.
Oh, my God.
And so the police, when they entered the room, they said it reeked of marijuana. Apparently, Shorty, in an exchange online, the boy had asked him, obviously asking him for money. He says, "I need money for spring break," he says.
Yeah.
Shorty replied, "I don't really have any legitimate things I need help with right now. Would you be interested in, quote, sexual stuff?" And then the juvenile wrote, "Yes." Shorty then asked if the boy, if he wanted to smoke marijuana, is what the intention there is. And the boy says, "That's up to you." Shorty then wrote, "Sounds good. Can you bring a pipe or something and a lighter?"
Wait, he's got the weed, but not the paraphernalia to smoke it?
No, I think the boy here was, I don't know.
I'm just saying. That's weird.
Maybe he did have the weed. He'd probably found the weed. Yes. Easy to... when you need it,
Right.
as a conservative Christian who can't get caught with anything,
Right.
you can procure it. use it, throw it away. But you don't want to buy a pipe.
Right. You don't want something. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. He's been using apples.
Yeah.
Maybe. Bring a pipe.
Well, he's married. He's got kids. And goes by the name Jamie Tilley online.
Ooh.
That's fun. Nonetheless, he's been charged with the three things that he's been charged for are all prostitution related. They're not getting him for the pot, which I think why not?
Well, yeah.
And the state Senate has acted quickly to punish Shorty for, quote, disorderly behavior.
Good Lord.
And they unanimously stripped him of most of his privileges at the Capitol, including his office and his parking space. So,
but he's still a senator.
Well, he's still an elected official, yeah.
Yeah, he
hasn't been removed from office yet.
He hasn't been convicted of anything.
Right, exactly.
So,
but disorderly conduct. One of the things that's also kind of a funny detail in this whole thing is that Shorty had been, he'd helped a former state representative by the name of Mike Christian deal with, he was a consultant to help him. He was a political consultant, but he was specifically helping this guy kind of dance around some sexual, not assault, sexual harassment claims, right? And so this guy had already he's a slimy, nasty dude, right? Well, so he was helping this state representative who was running for sheriff somewhere try to beat these sexual harassment claims. So I mean, this guy, it's a terrible story because it involves a minor. But he really has gotten what he deserves.
I mean, it's the only reason that these are stories for us is the hypocrisy.
Absolutely.
It's just those willing to yell loudest about, the immorality.
Oh, yeah.
Man, they're the ones that get caught.
Yeah.
It's never...
It's Shakespearean, it's Freudian, it's
all
everything.
Of the things. Yeah, exactly. Anybody who has an IAN at the end of their name, who isn't Armenian, because all of them end their names in IAN, like Shakespearean. Anyway.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Anyway, that's just how it goes. It's never a shock, and as the internet memes point out, it's always there have been plenty of GOP legislators arrested for doing nasty things in public bathrooms.
Yeah.
Still to this day, 0 trans people. Trans people are not the problem.
Wow. Yeah.
GOP legislators are the problem.
And also, you have a legislator in your state who jumps up and down a little too much about the LGBT issues. Might as well just investigate the guy.
The lady doth protest too much, methinks.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know what? I'm just going to transition into my story because it's to do. We've got a good segue here. People might remember former governor of North Carolina, Pat McCrory, who was just recently defeated. And is no longer governor of the fine state of North Carolina. He was made famous fairly recently by his pushing of and adamant pushing of House Bill 2, which banned transgender people from using the bathroom that matched their own gender identity, and forced them to use the one that matched
their birth certificate.
What he thought was their gender identity.
Right.
His version.
Right.
Which is important.
Well, yeah, I mean, he knows best.
He does know best. Here's the thing. Recently, so he's free market now. He's out on the open range in terms of his employment.
Yeah.
He complained recently on a podcast that he's been having trouble finding a job.
Oh, no.
People won't hire him because they think he's a bigot.
What?
Which is the farthest thing from what he is, according to himself.
No, he's not a bigot.
No.
How could he be McCrory's not a bigot.
Right. It is as though people looked at his unwillingness to hear the cry of the transgendered community.
Right.
That they just want to pee in peace.
Right.
somehow that makes him a meanie. And I don't know. The crux of this story for me, the thing that I love about this story is, hooray, it's working.
Yeah.
Like, society's advancing, and people who are anti-LGBT are getting are getting societal consequences for it.
Getting their due. That's great. This needs to happen more, and they need to talk about it more, so that people in office maybe they think twice about their life after they're in office. Because it's going to happen, folks. Sooner or later, you don't win election, or you just decide you're fed up with it.
Here's his exact quote. He says that the bill, quote, has impacted me to this day.
Oh, no.
Even after I left office, people are reluctant to hire me because, oh my gosh, he's a bigot, which is the last thing that I am. He says,
it's almost, perhaps, sir, the first thing you are.
Yeah.
Or at least the first thing that people think of you.
Right.
Right?
If you
don't want people to think you're a bigot, don't act like you're a bigot. That's easy.
Right. The
formula on that one's super easy.
The way to convince everyone to show us that you're not a bigot is don't do bigoted things. And then we'll be like, oh, wow, that dude's not a bigot.
Actually, we probably won't even have that thought.
It won't occur to us that you would have been a bigot.
The word bigot won't even enter into the conversation.
Right. We'll just...
Because if you have to think, oh, he's not a bigot, chances are...
You did something.
He probably was a bigot.
Right. Yeah. Oh, my God. It's only that I just managed to pass one of the most bigoted laws in recent history. Why would they call me a bigot for that?
Terrible. This society these days.
I'm just trying...
The media.
I'm
going to blame the media.
To protect the ladies.
Yeah.
From all of those pervert men who are trying to go to the bathroom in their bathroom.
Right.
That's all it is.
Oh, my goodness. Dan?
Yes, sir.
Another awesome segue.
Okay.
This is about the Qasim... That's how I'm going to pronounce it.
Okay.
Girls' Council.
Okay.
You want to guess where Qasim is? Saudi Arabia. Oh no. There's a Al Qasim province where there are apparently a lot of women. Mm-hmm. About 50% of the population of Al Qasim province is made up of women.
That's similar to the demographics here, I believe.
Yeah. And upon forming the first ever Qasim Girls Council, they held a big event announcing the whole thing.
Oh, good.
This is to promote girls, right? And girls,
it makes me nervous when you say this is to promote girls in Saudi Arabia. But go on.
Promote their cause.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. I'm still nervous, but go on.
Up on stage. Should I turn the photo toward you?
I think I see what's coming, but yes, please do.
This is who was seated up on stage.
Yeah.
Bunch of men.
Those are some sexy ladies. By which I mean, it is it looks like...
It's all men. 13 men were up on stage, total.
Yeah. It's like a Yasser Arafat lookalike contest up there. Not
a single woman. The women apparently were in another room linked via video.
Right, of course.
Right? Because it continues, Saudi Arabia continues with their strict gender separation laws.
And their strict shut up girls laws.
Men are here, we can speak for you.
Right.
The men have arrived.
Yes, we agree that there's a need for a girls' council. We will form one amongst ourselves and decide how many girls we each get.
Apparently, you may have seen this on social media. Apparently, it's been making the rounds.
Yeah.
I don't partake in social media, so I wouldn't know.
You're so much better than the rest of us.
But I guess there was another viral image that went all around with our president, surrounded by men signing an abortion policy. Law. That's that photo right there, right?
Right.
And so The connections are being drawn. The similarities are being pointed out.
Yeah. Not that far off. I mean, boy, men just love making the decisions for the ladies.
Oh, yeah. Why only make decisions about yourself?
Right.
Oh, it's fun.
The part that
Let's make decisions for other people, too.
The part that I object to is that those men in Saudi Arabia were not white. I feel like we white men should be deciding
do a better job
for those men
of deciding for
what they should be able to decide for the ladies.
Well, I don't know about that one, Dan.
That's the objection.
This
okay,
is all,
I see.
This is all part of a long process in Saudi Arabia where they're trying to raise the profile. Not necessarily raising the profile. I phrased that incorrectly. Where they're trying to increase women's participation on a certain level.
In men's power.
Well, at least in the workforce.
Okay. Oh, really?
From the current 22% up to 30%. Now, of course, these will probably have to be, service sector jobs in, segregated malls and whatnot.
Well, someone,
women work in those spaces because men genders are separate.
Right. Men can't
work there.
Serve the ladies. And let me tell you something. Women be shopping.
Oh, yeah.
Women be shopping.
Oh, yeah. With the growth of they're trying to diversify their economy right now.
Sure.
They're going to need women working in some of these jobs.
Yeah.
It'd be super easy to have an all-female call center. How does that work? Are men allowed to speak to women over the phone?
I don't know. Certainly reluctantly. They don't want to. I just, the thing about a gender-segregated society is that women are great to talk to. And
yeah,
it just, they're just cutting themselves off from, frankly, guys can be boring.
I don't know. That guy right there, he looks like he looks really interesting.
Second from the left?
Yeah.
Yeah, he does look like an interesting guy.
The way that he's sort of hunched, kind of, he's that little throne-like chair that he's sitting in. Yeah, he looks like quite the card.
They all look the same.
Yeah.
Not just because they're all dressed the same. Are they all wearing sunglasses?
They're all...
Or glasses of some...
Is there an eyesight problem in Saudi Arabia?
I think everything's too bright.
The dust.
It's the dust. They're all indoors wearing sunglasses. Anyway, that's all very fascinating. There you go. Yeah. I'm going to take us to Europe, where there has been one of what are probably three really kind of important elections to decide if Europe is every bit as shitty as the United States of America. So the first hurdle has been jumped, and the Netherlands has passed the test. They are not as shitty as the United States. What we're talking about is they had a big election, and the party of Geert, I'm going to guess Wilders.
Yeah.
Or Wilders, depending on how Americanized you want to make that.
Probably Wilders.
Yeah. Did not win.
Yeah.
His anti-Islam, anti-EU party came in second place.
Right.
So ha on him.
So far, only the UK is as shitty.
So far, right. Yes, the UK has managed to do it. The Netherlands
At least separate. On
the
racist
Netherlands
grounds.
managed not to elect the worst people to their. We assume, but yeah. So their parliament will not be controlled by the.
But he did get a sizable group, right? Like, what percentage of the vote did he get?
His party came in number 2.
Wow.
They led the opinion polls until late in the campaign, so they had hoped to pull off a big political coup.
Right.
But yes, they're number 2. They did gain seats in parliament.
Right.
So they are on the growth trajectory.
Hopefully, the trend line is going up.
Hopefully this cools that a little bit.
Yeah.
All of this is fueled, of course, by anti-Muslim sentiment because of the refugee situation in Europe. And the next thing we're going to be looking at Germany. Angela Merkel has a challenge coming up.
Yeah.
The main challenge is actually probably from the left, but there's also her party, her right wing party is being split by a bunch of anti-immigrant people as well.
Yeah.
It's tricky out there.
Ooh, what about France? I hear France has
another one. That's
Marie
the other
Le
one.
Pen or whatever.
Yeah,
her name is.
Yeah, she's the far right National Front in France is looking problematic. Their elections in May.
Yeah.
In Turkey, the Prime Minister of Turkey was glad. This is Erdogan. I don't know how to pronounce his first name. Was glad that Geert Wilders didn't win. But still believes that a war is coming, or that big major problems are coming to Europe.
Oh boy!
Now, mind you, Turkey's had some troubles in the Netherlands recently. They've actually cut major diplomatic ties because Erdogan wanted his ministers to speak to Turks in the Netherlands, as I understand it, to try and engage Turks who are out of the country to vote for Erdogan to have stronger powers in his country.
Okay.
And the Netherlands did not allow Turkish diplomats to hold rallies and do this. Anyway, there's a lot of ins and outs happening over there. Apparently Apparently Europe's allowed to have all kinds of politics as well. It just seems weird. Leave that to us. We're doing so well with it. Just do whatever we say.
I know. Well, yeah. Well, maybe my upcoming little trip to Europe will be my last opportunity to see an undestroyed.
Or maybe you can fix it while you're over there.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
That'll happen.
All right, Dan. Yeah. You always like these stories about the Satanic Temple. I was surprised that you didn't grab this one up. They've got a new little campaign, I guess, that they're running down in Texas.
Ooh.
They are encouraging students there in the public schools who could potentially be disciplined with corporal punishment. To get onto their website, and there's a little form that they can fill out that does not align them with the Satanic Temple, so they're not joining. They're not going to be members of the Satanic Temple, but it will align. It will align them with a specific tenet of the group's sort of belief system. That a person's body is inviolable and subject only to his or her will, as a way to claim religious exemption from corporal punishment.
Okay.
Right?
Interesting.
Right? They've put up a big billboard near Springtown, which actually hit the headlines a few years ago, about 5 years ago, when a male assistant principal paddled two female students. We may have actually covered this. The story rings familiar.
Sure.
Well, of course, the policy still stands that the kids can be spanked.
Yeah.
Now the policy is that what everybody kind of wanted was that a female administrator would have to do the spanking for girls.
Yeah, because that's so important.
Sort of same gender, whatever. Well, Springtown was like, no, we want sort of the force that man can hit that kid with.
He's stronger. It's going to sting more.
Needs to be equal punishment doled out here, folks. And so they just need a woman to be in the room while it's happening, to witness, to make sure that there wasn't anything untoward.
Yeah, because that's a perfect system. Lord knows no woman could ever be in the room when something worse happens.
Right.
That couldn't.
According to Lucian Greaves,
Yes.
says we are not doing this to recruit.
He's the head of the Satanic Temple.
Yes. We're not doing this to recruit. We're doing this to protect children. We think it's a savage and backward practice. And it is.
Yeah.
Apparently there are 15 states that allow for it.
For corporal punishment. Interesting.
Texas, of course, being the most enthusiastic on the topic. However, individual school districts are allowed to set their own policy on the topic. For example, Dallas Independent School District does not allow for corporal punishment.
And that's why every child in Dallas is spoiled.
It's out of control, Dan. Absolutely out of control.
You spare that rod, you're going to spoil that child.
But I love this idea of, letting, he also says, we're hoping to get children to sign up to exempt themselves from corporal punishment policies, whether their parents agree or not.
Yeah.
Basically saying that child has a right to defend their own
body. Autonomy and
their body, that's their right.
Right.
And it should be. The child has a right not to be abused in any way, shape, or form.
Every child has a right not to be hit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Whether by a drunk parent or a creepy school principal.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you can't, honestly, if you can't discipline a child without hitting them,
yeah,
you probably don't belong in the school system. If you can't figure out a way to encourage good behavior,
right,
without hitting a tiny child.
Well, it's absolute just pure fear. Because in Oklahoma, they allowed it when I was a kid.
Oh, my God.
And a few kids would have to report to the office for their...
Maybe at the college level, I'm okay with it. Maybe once they get big enough that they can fight back.
Sure.
then it's at least a different animal.
Yeah.
Lord
knows
knows
that that's a good idea.
I've wanted to hit a couple college kids in my day.
Well, it's more when they sort of go through that know-it-all phase.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when. That's when.
Just smack them.
They just start telling you everything that they know so much about that you couldn't possibly know anything about. And you're just like, here it comes.
Yeah.
Here comes, I'm putting the hurt on. Anyway, I'm going to take us across the oceans to India. Where Reza Aslan has been making some interesting news.
Interesting.
Reza Aslan is a scholar and he's of Iranian descent, I believe, and a Muslim, and he's doing a show, a documentary series for CNN, in which he went to India, and he's outraged some Hindus.
Oh yeah,
because he spent quite a bit of. He went to Varanasi, which is the most sacred city in all of India for the Hindus.
The most Hindu of all the cities.
It's the
Hinduiest.
It's the Hinduiest. It is where the Ganges River, or Ma Ganga, as they said there, meets the city of, is it Shiva? The Varanasi? I don't know. Anyway, I learned it when I was there. Now I've forgotten everything that I learned. Anyway, he found this very little, crazy bananas, like Hindu offshoot cult.
Okay.
And he went and hung out with them.
Okay.
Turns out they're like cannibals, and they're weird, and like he was sort of forced to. He drank some alcohol out of a skull. And then he ate human brains, like they gave him human brains, and then they threatened his life for talking too much. It was apparently, it was a very scary situation.
Were there cameras at least?
Yeah,
there were other people around.
Yeah, this is all on camera. This is all on tape.
He ate human brains.
He ate human brains on camera. Yeah,
surely that breaks some tenet of Islam.
Yeah,
isn't there one that's about
all of the things?
Giving to the poor and...
Well, I mean, I also said that he drank alcohol out of a...
Oh, shit, you did.
Yeah.
He's not a Muslim anymore.
Well, he's a broken Muslim is what he is.
Is there fatwa out to get him?
No, but the Hindus are the ones that are mad at him now.
What?
Because I mean, what they're claiming, and I think they've got a valid point, is that he's like he'd spent all of this time, in a limited time documentary, talking to like the craziest sect of this religion, which paints the whole, which may serve to paint the whole religion in a weird light.
So it'd be only looking at Jehovah's Witnesses
or the snake handler,
Pentecostals,
people,
and saying
right.
That's Christianity.
And say that, I went and found these Christians and look what they do with the snakes and they drink the poison and all of the stuff.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that there is some validity, but, he's also making entertainment. And that's some entertainment right there. These guys are nutballs.
I can't believe that he actually
look at that.
Engaged in eating like brains and whatnot.
I don't think he felt like he had a choice. Like they were threatening him. I'm showing Frank a picture now of a guy.
That guy's
who's like he's dressed. He's like he's got a beard and he's kind of got his face all whited out. Like some Hindu mystics do this sort of face painting sort of thing.
He could also just as easily be a. Unless that's like human bacon around his.
No, those are like human jawbones and stuff.
Oh, Jesus
that he's
Christ.
got like
arranged
arranged around his.
That's
his
a
head.
little scary.
Yeah,
I was about to say he could just as easily be a yoga guru, but
yeah, I mean
he is one step beyond that.
Yeah, these guys are
or two,
and apparently Aslan's head was smeared with like ash from a human pyre. From a cremation. That's one of the big things that happens in Varanasi is like there are all these crematoria along the river where they build up a lot. They have just cords and cords of wood and they build up a fire. They put the body, the family brings the body of a loved one there. They burn it and then just everything goes into the river.
Right.
And that's both upstream and downstream from where people do the holy dip into the river from, people are like dipping into the river with human remains.
Is he just trying to outdo Louis Theroux with Weird Weekend or?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Why? Under what guise? Is this CNN that he's doing this for?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So like kooky things happening.
So wow.
It's just nuts.
Okay, the other question I had, where are they getting the human brains from? They're cannibals. Are they killing people and then eating them?
I don't think so. I think these are people who died
and bequeathed their body to be eaten.
Yeah, I guess.
Maybe.
Other members of the sect. I don't know. Like the other thing is that like I don't think it's healthy. I don't think it's safe to eat human brain. I think actually you can get like horrible disease from that. I'm not sure.
Ugh. Well, if Reza Aslan, all of a sudden goes off the deep end.
Yeah.
That's bad.
He apparently quipped at one point, "I feel like this may have been a mistake."
Yeah, you wouldn't get me within 10 miles of that.
No.
Not even as like a production crew. Like there's no way.
Yeah. It's a little scary.
Oh my God.
Anyway, if you'd like to tell us about your encounters with crazy Hindu cannibals, please write into us. podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
Or call and leave us a voicemail message. The telephone number is 424-666-8442.
Right. Go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/TGIAtheist.
And while on Facebook, search for the TGIA Members Only Lounge and request to join. It is a closed group, but we'll let you in. Okay, Dan.
Yes, sir.
You ready for some Cindy Jacobs? Do you remember Cindy Jacobs?
Cindy Jacobs.
The prophetess?
She's a very important lady.
She kind of heads up a little church. She predicts things.
Okay. Yeah.
She's kooky, batshit crazy.
Yeah.
Right. Well, she's got some things to say. About Christians and the Jews.
I love it.
I want to read a Bible verse to you about us. If you are born again, according to Romans 11:17, it says, but if some of the branches were broken off, and you Gentiles, that's us, being like a wild olive shoot, were grafted in among them to share with them the rich root of the olive tree. Now that's, again, typology. What is symbology? What does that mean? It means that what the Jews have, we have. However, we have more when we're in Christ, because the Holy Spirit is inside us, empowering us to do the good works we're called to do. Yeah. Amen? And so I want you to get excited about this, because, I know I was in China, and we were talking about the Jews of China and how the blessing came, and we were tracing some of the Jewish history of China and so forth. But I want to say to you that one of the things I believe that's going to bring a great harvest of Jews is the Christians becoming so profoundly wealthy. And I'm not going to read it to you out of Romans 11, but it goes on and it talks about that it's going to make them jealous. The wealth and the riches that we're able to attain is going to make them jealous. Yeah. Do you think our poverty is going to make a Jew jealous? No. Come off it. No. We are meant to prosper. Why? Because they understand in their culture that obedience to God brings blessing.
Oh, dear God.
The high goal that God has for his flock is to make the other flock jealous.
And then they'll come running.
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
well, you know how the Jews are with money.
They love it.
They love it.
It's the best thing that they have. That's the only thing that they understand, really.
Well, but they understand that God lets his people prosper.
You'd think the narrative that you hear so often from right-wingers is that the Jews control the media, the Jews control the banks, the Jews are all rich and blah, blah, blah. You'd think that someone like this would look at that and go, oh, maybe we should be running the other direction. Maybe we should be converting to Judaism. They seem to be winning.
Yeah.
The prosperity thing.
Prosperity doctrine.
Right. They seem to be prospering, at least by our own narrative.
Yeah, but if we hold on to the Christianity thing, we'll soon be richer.
Just any minute now.
We'll be richer than the Jews.
Any minute now. The prosperity doctrine will work. Any minute now. Because Lord knows, no poor Christians. Certainly not in her southern neck of the woods. Ain't no poor Christians.
Oh
my goodness, it's so funny.
Oh my God,
ridiculous. Hey, we had some folks write into us.
Yeah.
So you and I got into a little bit of hot water this last week. Many people were upset by things that you and I said.
Really?
Mostly.
How is that possible?
White men were upset by things that we said. Because we said some things about women and about people of color that they didn't like. So let's dive in. Hey guys, I usually agree with you on most everything, but I think that you're way off base on the conversation around men making women feel threatened. You'll recall, Frank, that we talked about, we posited the scenario of a woman walking down the street alone at night,
right,
and a man approaching from behind.
Yeah,
and the possibility of the woman crossing the street to avoid a confrontation, and we said, wouldn't it be nice if the man crossed the street so that she felt more comfortable?
Well, yeah, I mean, one person here, she, out of her own self-protection, would want to cross the street.
Right, because she doesn't know if the man's going to be an attacker.
Wasn't this based on something where somebody felt offended?
Yes, it was based on a thing that I had read where the guy was complaining that he was offended that she would cross the street because he's not a rapist.
Right.
So, why would she just assume that he is?
Right.
Anyway, we'll finish this email and then we'll discuss.
Okay.
He says, he or she, sorry, this isn't signed. Obviously, some women are going to get to feel threatened when a man is approaching from behind on a public street. And I'm not going to go ahead and tell women how they should or shouldn't feel in any given situation. But,
Yes.
it's a dangerous but saying men should cross the street to avoid the possibility of inadvertently intimidating a woman is, to my mind, no different than saying black people should cross the street to avoid intimidating white people. It's an offensive proposition based solely on the fact that I'm male. The solution to this problem, to the problem of women feeling secure, is to reduce crime and rape overall, not engage in a solution that equates to gender segregation. This idea is straight out of the mouth of Islamic, ultra-Orthodox Jewish, and fundamentalist Christian apologists trying to explain away the misogyny inherent in their belief systems. Well, thanks for writing in.
Yeah.
I think here's, a lot of other people wrote more strident things to us.
Also had a voicemail on the topic.
Okay. I think that here's a couple things that we need to acknowledge.
Right.
And that is that most men are not going to attack a woman on the street.
True.
And you're not a rapist.
Right.
Great.
And
just because other men are doesn't mean that anyone should assume that you are.
Exactly.
That's not the point that we were making.
No.
The point that we were making is there are enough men who are rapists or attackers or thieves that a woman walking alone on the street is right to feel vulnerable.
Right.
And is right to take whatever precautions she feels she needs to feel safe.
Right. And here's where the race analogy, or linking this up to race, breaks down for me.
Right.
Right. And
because it's very much not the same.
It's not the same thing. And it has to do with the thought of if I as a man walking and on a university campus.
Right.
Right. And I see a black man approaching, right?
Mm-hmm.
From the opposite direction.
Sure.
I don't think twice about it.
Right.
I'm in a bad part of town. Any man approaching, I think twice about it.
Right.
Right. And
context is super important in these questions. And it's not about the race of the person.
Exactly.
It's about, is this a safe scenario?
Right. And so you take a woman walking across a university campus, and it doesn't matter who that person is.
Right.
Or that man is. University campuses, which are sort of, bastions of,
liberal
thinking, so forth and so on. And in general, pretty safe places. Rapes occur on university campuses. Rapes occur
at super high rates.
Yeah. Rapes occur in downtown areas, in upper middle class neighborhoods. Rapes occur in nice parks.
Right.
They occur everywhere.
Right.
A woman.
There's no context in which a woman alone is going to be inherently safe.
Right. Whereas I can take race and put it into different places in different socioeconomic settings. And as a man, it's not an issue.
Right.
Right.
Right. I would, if depending on the context, I will cross the street to avoid a group of men, regardless of race.
Right.
If a bunch of rowdy guys tumble out of a bar looking like they're spoiling for a fight,
right,
I'm going to cross the street. I'm going to take measures to be out of that chaotic environment.
Right. Because
how
easily are you now a faggot? For whatever reason.
Right. Or, they just don't like, they don't like something, whatever.
Yeah.
It would be foolish of me to just venture into a situation like that.
Right.
Just as in any given scenario, a woman is a vulnerable person and more vulnerable than a man. There's just an assumption of vulnerability that makes her more likely to be attacked.
Right. And so I think our point was one of the two people in this hypothetical of an unnamed street in America somewhere, right? One of these people is probably going to be crossing the street, in this scenario.
Right.
Why not be polite and be a little aware of what your presence might be doing,
what it means
to
that person,
and just be. It was more of an asking for an acknowledgement of just that reality.
Yeah. This isn't, and yes, you're right. It will be great if we can bring down the crime rate and the rape rate to the point where women don't have to feel that way.
And that should be the big goal.
That is the big goal.
Right?
Great.
Of course we're working toward that.
But in the meantime, there's a reality that we have to deal with. Yeah. In the meantime, until that blessed day, hallelujah, there's a reality.
Right.
And the thing is, if you don't want to be perceived as a rapist, and you're not,
right,
we're going to assume that you are the best guy.
Yeah.
And great. Then the way to show the world that you're not that rapist,
right,
that you're that awesome dude,
right,
act like an awesome dude and give her space.
Yeah.
Just let her feel that much more comfortable.
Yeah.
It doesn't say anything bad about you.
Right.
It doesn't say that you're admitting to being associated with rapists.
Yeah.
It doesn't say that the society assumes that you're a rapist. Right. It just says, I know that women are more vulnerable in these scenarios. Uh-huh. She's probably feeling uncomfortable. I can ease that discomfort by crossing the street.
Right.
It's not an admission of guilt.
Right.
There's nothing to be guilty about.
Right.
So,
nothing. Yeah, and that's key here as well. Is like, I think a lot of people think that because that maybe. Are you going to read the one about the group, like the group guilt?
I don't think. No. There was some things. Here's what I am going to get into. Since we're talking about group as a whole, I'm gonna add this one to the mix.
Okay, all right.
This is from Mike in Alabama. It's no biggie, he says. I'm white, so I tend not to be bothered by, anything. But at the end of episode 276, Dan said people who aren't white can't be racist. Seems like a weird thing to say. His phrasing was a bit different, but that was the punch. I'm sure he just let his words come out before they went through his filter. But Frank, you got to poke the bear from time to time and stand up to his extremist views. Love the show. Glad I could be a pain in your ass.
Extremist.
I'm an extremist.
You have extremist views, Dan.
I sometimes do.
Yeah.
But let's unpack what that was about as well, because we may not have communicated that well. I may not have communicated that well.
Yeah.
Again, we were accused by other people of saying that someone should be guilty for being white, or saying someone should be guilty for being male.
Right.
And none of that couldn't be further from the point.
You are guilty and should only feel guilty, right, for your own actions.
For being a racist or participating in racist things or sexism or homophobia or whatever.
I do think that there is group responsibility.
Yes.
Not in taking on the all the shame and all of that type responsibility, but group responsibility toward this is the acknowledgement of your privileges, acknowledging the social dynamics that might exist between races, and trying to be one of the good guys. If you're white in America, try to be one of the good guys who's working toward racial equality and acknowledging that different groups have different levels of privilege in this society.
Right. I mean, and here's what we're talking about. We're talking about little things like the fact that if you send the same resume out to companies to be considered for a job, and that resume says Tiffany, it will be called more often than if that resume
the equal resume,
exact same resume says Shaniqua.
Right.
That's just a fact.
Right.
That has been tested many times and proven to be so.
Right.
Same thing if your name is Frank versus your name is Darnell or whatever.
Right. Or Muhammad or whatever.
Right. So what we know is even if that person looking at those resumes, has some friends of color, doesn't think of themselves as black, there is an unconscious and systemic racism still present, very much real and alive in our society.
Right.
The same goes for men and women.
Right.
We know we recently, just last week, there was a really interesting case where a man was tweeting about the fact that he was a supervisor over this woman at their work. They both did basically the same job, which was to advise, I guess, people on. It was some sort of they advised corporations on a thing,
Right.
and he was getting a lot of flack from his superior because this woman was not as productive as he was, and he was pushing her to be faster, to be more productive. Right. And then one week, he wasn't being very productive. He was noticing a lot more pushback from his clients. They were questioning his advice more often, so he was having to work harder to get them to sort of understand where he was coming from and believe what he said. Mm-hmm. And he finally realized that the reason was that he was answering their emails. He was sending out emails with her email signature. So they thought that they were coming from her instead of from him. And so they did an experiment. Right. They swapped signatures.
Right.
Only thing they changed was the client thought that either the man or the woman was writing to them.
Right.
And it changed everything.
Right.
He instantly became the non-productive one, and she instantly became the productive one. Right. Because they just listened more.
Wow.
When they thought it was a man.
Right.
Same advice coming from both people.
Right.
So, I mean, this is just unconscious. These people aren't aware that that's how they're responding.
Right.
But it's there.
Right.
And to not acknowledge that it's there, to pretend like it's not the reality of our current society. Right. And yeah, obviously, once we hit ideal,
we can stop having this.
We can stop having this conversation in a gazillion years when that happens.
But I think another thing here, Dan, that is really important for a lot of us, I think on the left, to remember when we're talking about these kind of things, is that I know that, well, I'm going to speak for myself, and I think I can include you on this, which is I think a lot of times when we're talking about racism, we understand that we're talking about it on a systemic and on a societal level.
Right.
Right? That we're not necessarily, like when we talk about white racism, we're not talking about individual white people. Just because you're in the group doesn't mean that you are a racist.
And it doesn't mean, and just because you're white doesn't mean that you have everything handed to you on a silver platter.
Exactly.
Either.
Right. However, this society, you cannot get away from the fact that there is still systemic racism that pushes and not even so much pushes people down, but holds people down.
Right. That changes the dynamic from which you're working.
Right.
Entirely. And that's just a fact. And so like when I say that non-white racism can't really exist.
Right.
It's because systemically speaking,
right,
it's just in place.
Right.
The fix is in.
Right.
And so a non-white human can be very prejudiced against white people.
Right.
Or it can be prejudiced against people of other color.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
Prejudice occurs from everyone to everyone.
Yes.
And that's
almost how we are designed on some level.
And we'll be talking about that later in the show. But like racism as a concept,
right,
goes is a top-down thing.
Right.
Is a thing that happens when the group in power holds down less powerful groups.
Right. That's how the isms typically work.
That's the isms.
Yeah.
Welcome to the isms.
The isms it's about the hierarchies.
And we don't need to get into semantics. You can.
But that's how sexism works.
You can define these words differently.
Right.
But that's what we're talking about.
Right. Exactly.
So there you go. I'm going to move on. There's a couple. There's one more email that I wanted to get to. Oh, a couple more emails. Sorry.
Oh no.
Frank, Dan, hope you've been well. A brief comment on the fighting ideology versus fighting people dialogue from last week.
Geez.
This was my
week 3 of this.
We'll be all right. We can make it through. No, this is good. This basically, he says, this is Zach. He says, naturally, you fight the ideology, but the understanding is that there is no ideology without the people. They are the hosts. They are, and it is the infection. So, Dan, when you say I don't fight people, I fight the ideology, I'm struggling to picture how you would go about that. Though I get a nice laugh picturing you writing the word racism on a chalkboard and yelling at it. Sadly, there is no other way to go, but to go through people. So anyway, and then he goes on to talk about, like, he basically redefines the word fight and the word enemy, because I said I don't have enemies.
Right. Can I try just to filter what you're saying?
Sure.
Even though I don't fully agree with you,
Sure.
can I try just to filter it real quick?
Okay.
And then you can agree or disagree.
Great.
I think it really sums up to one or two basic goals that you're looking for.
Okay.
Which is, you're looking for a civil dialogue where people respect each other.
Right. That's definitely high on my list.
Right. And that you don't devalue the person that you're talking to in sort of these disagreement situations, right?
Right.
You don't dehumanize the other side.
I think that's a brilliant way of putting it.
I think that's what you're trying to say.
I think that's most of what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
And I would go on to say that the dehumanization, the answer. So a lot of the people that wrote in would say things like, if they aren't respecting me, if the other side doesn't respect you, you can't have a civil dialogue,
Right.
because they don't humanize you. They don't see you as a human.
Right.
So you've got to deal with that. And the best way, and many people would say that the way to do that is by not acknowledging their humanity either, but just fighting.
Right.
To which I say, civil dialogue will never occur if you fight their dehumanizing you by dehumanizing them.
Right.
The way you get to civil dialogue, the way you change the model from fight, to listen, is by you starting the listening.
Okay.
That's all you can do.
Right.
And if you are just in fight mode, then you'll just keep them in fight mode, and no one will ever hear anyone.
I think that is far less of a problematic statement.
Okay. Well, that's all.
From my perspective.
That's what I was
don't know
trying
about
to
our
get
listeners, but I mean, for me, because I kind of stepped away, and of course, I'm the one who posts the show. I don't know if everybody listening knows that. But so I have to go through the show again and just make sure that everything's kosher and that it was recorded well and la la la. And so I end up listening through it again. And while listening to it again, I was just kind of sitting there going, well, I know what he means. I feel like I really do feel like what he means, but what he's saying, I'm having a really tough time with.
Right. So I'm totally open to the notion that I did not explain myself well. That's fine. Let's just keep having a dialogue.
Sounds good.
All right. Let's call that a day in terms of our emails, and let's do we have some folks to thank?
We do. We have a new Pope, everyone.
What?
The white smoke has flown.
Oh.
His name's Jake.
Jake is our new pope. Oh my goodness. There's been a coup in the papal seat.
And James, as always, continues to be our Lord and Savior. Thank you, James, and thank you, Jake. And if you'd like to join them on Patreon, you can do so by going to our website, thankgodimatheist.com, and clicking on the Patreon button. And there you'll find all sorts of rewards and things. And as a patron on Patreon, this is pretty cool. You get a commercial-free version of the show.
Indeed.
That's just the starting off point.
That's just where it begins, and then the rewards just roll in.
So thanks again for your support.
All right, Frank. So here's the deal.
Yeah.
As you know, I'm in rehearsals for a play right now. Mm-hmm. This play is crazy. I don't know if some of our listeners may have seen it when it was on Broadway recently. It's a delightfully wicked play called Hand to God. Ooh. And in it, I play a pastor, which is always fun. I play a Texas Lutheran pastor out of Cypress, Texas, which is a suburb of Houston.
Missouri Synod.
my research hasn't gotten me that far. I got a lot to do.
Tell me a little more. Tell me more.
Well, here's the thing. One of the big themes that this play has, and it opens with this monologue given by a semi-demonic puppet that appears in the play.
Okay.
Is to do with the invention of good and evil.
Okay.
And how when we as humans started to do really well and thrive as a group, this happened when we started acting as a group. So when many people found out that they could kill bigger animals together, they started to thrive more. But then we had to have group rules. And that monologue is fun, and it's sort of the opening of the play. But it's gotten me thinking about groups, and it's got me thinking about morality and sort of the group versus the individual, because that's been useful for millions of years to our species.
200,000 years.
Just millions and millions of years for our species and the species previous predecessor.
Millions, yes. If you and are not necessarily morphologically modern human.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not the Homo. Well, how does that work?
I don't know.
There's Homo sapiens, which has been around for 200,000 years.
Okay.
And then prior to that, you have like Homo erectus, and the Neanderthals came before us. Right.
They're saying
then lived concurrently.
Yeah, lived concurrently and stuff. Anyway, let's not go down a rabbit hole that we really aren't that educated on.
I did watch a Nova.
Well, then you know all the things. Anyway, millions of years. It doesn't matter.
It's not millions, Dan.
Evolution
took place over.
For 40 days and 40 nights, we humans have been relying on the group thing.
Ah, yes.
And here's the thing. This groupthink is where religion basically springs out of.
Right.
It springs out of this need for rules that apply to all of us. And as we have advanced through the thing, we've come up with a whole bunch of different rules in different places.
Oh, we love rules.
And
we're actually champions of rules.
Yeah,
we love them.
Well, we have to have them.
Yeah.
Because when we're working together as a group, then if somebody
but it
works
extends
outside of the group
to rules about the microwave at work. Right?
Yeah.
And who's supposed to do what with the microwave.
Right.
And the signs that get left on the microwave and the refrigerator.
Yeah.
And next to the mug shelf and the coffee maker.
And for the love of God, pick up the shit of your own dog.
There's probably a woman named Cindy in that office.
Oh, she's the worst. She's always... the problem is... Well, it's Cindy and it's Greg, because Cindy is the one that's always microwaving fish, and it just smells up the entire office.
Yeah.
But Greg's the one who's always eating other people's food, but he doesn't admit it. But we know it's you, Greg.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Or Kevin.
Oh, God, it's Kevin, isn't it? Oh,
it's always Kevin.
Sorry, Greg. Anyway, the point is that I read a really interesting article recently about how our brains were, we've developed these huge brains that are capable of abstract thought, and that are capable of rational thought, and that no other animal is really capable of. We are able to...
Not on our level.
No.
Right.
And we just sort of assume that that's because we've evolved so well, and the natural progression is toward rational thought.
Of course.
Well,
except for the fact that there's no driving force behind evolution.
Right. Well, and
right.
Except to keep the species alive.
Exactly.
And if if something, if one trait...
Adaptations and
Right. If one trait leads to more death, that trait will not keep going. And a trait that leads toward more staying alive keeps going.
I think
is the oversimplified version.
Yeah. Way. But nonetheless.
Well, so what they're saying is that the reason that these giant neocortexes developed was to promote group thought. Was so that we as a species could
or someone who had group thought was naturally selected.
Right.
Yeah.
We have the capacity for rational thought, but that's not why it developed that way, which is why we're so bad at it. Why we can do it really, really well when we're forced to, but why we don't do it so often. Right. So often we see that someone defends the position of whatever group they've decided to belong to, rather than look at their position and say, oh, wait, that might be wrong. So you get all these religious folks. You know, I was a Mormon, and up until the point when I stopped being a Mormon, I would have defended the Mormon point of view against all encroachments, even much more logical encroachments.
Right.
So
unto death.
The logic wasn't the key.
Fight unto death.
The group was the key.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's kind of what we wanted to talk about, was just the group versus the individual. And you had some interesting thoughts about.
Oh, did I?
Well, yeah. You were asking questions about who would value group and who would value individual more.
I mean, on this whole topic, I think where I kind of would get started would be kind of the question. I would have the question of who, if you actually questioned different members of different groups, right? And you just simply asked, do you value the group or the individual higher? Right. So I think it would probably be fairly universal that people would say that they think that the group is probably more important, that protecting the group is the thing. Probably even your most rabid libertarians would have a group that they could identify, like family.
Okay, right.
That's their group that they would probably say. They probably wouldn't be willing to go much larger than that. Maybe if they belong to an HOA, although I have a hard time thinking of a true libertarian ever
belonging to an
HOA.
I mean, what's funny is how much lip service is paid by some to this sense of Ayn Rand-esque individualism.
Yeah,
like you're only of value to you. Yeah, and you should be serving yourself. Yeah, and anyone who serves the group is a sucker.
Yeah, and the rugged individualist. Right. You know, even these people have to acknowledge the necessity of the group. I guess really what it all boils down to is how large these concentric circles or overlapping circles might actually grow for a person. So like for me, I have no problem with group on a very large scale. Yeah. I have no problem even extending out to humanity as a whole. Yeah. What are our basic needs? What are the things that we all need to be concerned about? And how
do we serve each other the best?
Yeah. And I think this is where people are able to be concerned about things like global warming.
Right.
Right. And so forth and so on. You know.
I think what's interesting about that, and maybe this, I hadn't drawn this line directly in our previous discussion of this, but what we have right now as our president is a narcissist,
right?
Which is sort of the ideal non-group thinker.
Yeah, exactly.
The me server, to the point of what we would call a personality disorder,
perhaps.
Is my guess. But
I don't think I'm capable of diagnosing him as such. But
sure, we know that that there is a narcissistic personality disorder.
Right.
So what we know is that
whether he has
people who study human minds and how they are supposed to act, see narcissism, see extreme narcissism, extreme self-servance,
when they look at our president.
They see that as a disorder.
Oh, right.
They see it as a brain malfunction.
Isn't that interesting?
When you're so far out of groupthink, that you can't that others don't seem equal to you, or that you see them as in service to you,
right?
and only useful in that capacity, that's a disorder in humanity. Wow. That is a broken human brain. So I think that that's really interesting. That's who we've chosen to. I would say, I'm not diagnosing the man, but he certainly he exhibits a sense of at least. And here's the thing, he's still doing groupthink. Yeah. Or at least he's appealing to groupthink.
Yeah, no, he understands it clearly.
And he's still saying, and he finds the groups that most like him, and he gloms onto them, and they're mostly religious people.
And narcissists are often master manipulators, as well, especially if you add on sociopath, onto the diagnosis.
Which let's be honest. I think you and I both have just enough psychological knowledge that we can accurately say Donald Trump has all of the disorders. He is all of them.
Anyway. No, that's an interesting thought, Dan. And I guess, I wonder what percentage of our top leaders have been narcissists, but who have understood the need to have a facade of sort of, I'm here for everyone. Trump gives it lip service, but he's not good at the facade. Well, he's not good at sort of the caring persona part of it.
Well, people believe it. Here's the thing. Believe it. People who are in the Republican group,
not all of it. My parents.
Plenty of them don't.
Right.
But people who are in the group think of Republicans. Yeah. You got a lot of people who just believe his sincerity, who believe But what's interesting is that what he's doing is redefining what groups Americans are supposed to care about, to smaller and smaller groups.
Not Muslims, the right groups,
not Muslims. They are not in group. They are out group. Even if they're Americans, they're still out group, and not American taxpayers shouldn't be funding the arts, shouldn't be funding the sciences, Because global. If we are funding climate change research, and mitigation techniques, that's everybody has to pay for that, That means that we have to be looking at the group for a reason to do that.
Well, and it's also belonging to the UN, right? He has a serious problem with our position at the UN. He'd rather us go, if we're going to be doing humanitarian stuff around the world, that we would just do it ourselves, which actually will be more expensive and our dollars will be less effectively spent because the UN already has the apparatus in place, and so it's kind of like people are like, who cares if we're spending, if we fund almost 30% of the UN, those dollars go that much further because we have everybody else's dollars going along with it, right? Maybe not the same proportion as you would want, but he has this. You're right, though, that he has this inability to think about these larger groups,
and I think that this, it's interesting,
or other groups,
right. I think that religion, and I'm just sort of going to circle this back out of politics and sort of back to the religious idea, because I think that what happens with humans is that we're so good at groupthink. And so good at using that as a barrier to rational thought, that I think what we need to do in our discourse as humans is take that into consideration. So understanding that when I talk to my father-in-law, I can't approach him and just say, here are all of the rational, logical reasons why your religion is stupid and wrong and bad. Because he's going to jump to the group way before he jumps to his logic. And his reason. Way before. Not everybody does that. I mean, I'm sure many of the listeners of this podcast and two of the people in the room with us right now, meaning just us, are, made it out of religion because we finally did crash reason and logic up against the group.
But it's also easy for us to now find ourselves into groups that we feel very comfortable with, and that the outside thoughts, even though they might be more reasoned, right?
Yeah.
We're still blind to them.
We're still blind.
There are plenty of things that we are blind to because of our basic worldview that is incredibly entrenched.
Yeah.
And we will protect that worldview at all costs almost.
Not because it's superior, but because we identify with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But because it's our group.
Right.
That's our group. And we are evolutionarily evolved to care about that.
Right.
So I think that's maybe that's what we're getting to.
Right.
Is that this is about discourse.
Right.
And we can't have good discourse because we're stupid critters.
Right.
And we were evolved not for discourse, but for group.
Right.
So if we want discourse, we have to get through that maze of the groupthink first.
Right.
We have to address that.
So maybe your desire, Dan, to not think of the person who's in another group who thinks differently than you, not thinking of them as an enemy, you're trying to transcend these divides.
The groupthink divide.
Groupthink divide.
Right.
Right.
Right. Because the second I see someone as an enemy,
right,
I've entrenched back into my group.
Right.
I'm not going to be thinking as logically either. Like maybe they're completely illogical.
Right.
But that means I have to be even more reasonable and logical.
Right. I mean, the thing is, ultimately, at the end of the day, if you just kind of want to step back and look at the whole of humanity, right, just for a minute, and say, you know, what is going... Really, the only thing that we have at our base is the biological imperative to keep the species going.
Yeah.
Right? That's it.
Yeah.
And so will a conservative, closed society keep the species going? Yeah. I mean, it will.
It can. Yeah,
no,
sure.
It will.
Yeah.
It will. Can a liberal, open society keep the species going? Yeah, it will. People will still be fucking and having kids in both societies. Yep. The question is, where do people thrive? And, and as individuals now. Right. And so you just have to look at the different groups that are out there and say, where do I thrive the most, and where do I believe others are given the most opportunity to thrive? That's basically all I care about.
Yeah.
Right. At the end of the day, because my politics are all fucking up in the air right now.
Sure.
Right. Not all of them, but there's a lot of my politics, my sense of like what's the right way to politically engage in the world, governmentally engage in the world, as a voter, as a citizen, engage with my government. Right? Like all of these things are topsy-turvy at the moment, and may come and recoalesce in the same way that they were before, right? But at this moment, because of the trauma of having this horrendous president, right, who's so far outside of my group that I have no identity with whatsoever, I cannot identify with this man on any level, right? And that's the problem. Liberal America is like looking at this guy, and he is anathema to almost all of our values, right? And so it's just like, well, fuck it. Something is wrong in this world, and I need to take a minute and look at me.
Well, and that's so here's what I think is the and I'm gonna even circle back further and go back to my play that I'm in, because one of the themes of this play, what happens to pretty much all of the characters of this play, is that they get broken down to, like, all of the facades get shredded off of them.
Oh no, that sounds painful.
It is. You have no like it happens with a hammer in part.
Oh.
Like it's very painful, this process for everybody.
Wow.
Like you don't know things spiral out of control. You're gonna like this play.
A literal hammer?
Yeah. At one point, a hammer must be used to do this. But what it does is it shreds people down to human. When all of the facade is taken off, when my character, when he is called out for being pastor instead of person enough times that he hears it, that's when he can connect with the other people. When he lets go of the group and of the small group and touches the part of himself that is the big group, which is human.
Right.
And I think so maybe that's the call. Maybe we're just saying, when you feel yourself butting up against somebody else, when you feel yourself angry at someone else, that's okay. There's certainly nothing wrong with being angry at someone else. There's lots of reasons to be mad at someone else. But also, for your own sake and for the sake of dialogue, touch the most human part of yourself. Dig deeper until you get to the part of you that understands. And here's the funny thing. A lot of people say that, I hear yoga people say the phrase namaste, and they say, and I hear often that the definition of that word, the real meaning of that word, is the light in me recognizes the light in you.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful, Dan.
And I fucking hate that shit. Here's what's really interesting. In working on this play, what I've realized is, it's much more important for the bullshit in me to recognize the bullshit in you. What that means is I have to realize that I'm a piece of shit too. I'm pretty bad at this. We're all pretty bad at this.
Yeah.
I have a lot to learn. I've gained a lot of knowledge, a little bit of wisdom, and it's done me so little good. And you know what? Look, I'm a piece of shit, and the piece of shit in me recognizes the piece of shit in you. We both have humanity to us. Let's see if we can move forward.
Oh, it's beautiful, Dan.
So namaste, everybody. To all of you.
We're all pieces of shit.
And if you'd like to write into us and tell us how we're wrong about all of this,
because we know you will,
and you're probably right. We are pieces of shit over here. So please write to us. Podcast at thankgodimatheist.com is the email address.
Or call and leave us a voicemail message. The telephone number is 424-666-8442.
Yes, go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/TGIAtheist.
And while you're on Facebook, search for the TGIA Members Only Lounge and request to join. It is a closed group, but you'll get let in if you're for real.
Yeah, it's true. Hey, speaking of Facebook, I want to thank Mackenzie for all of her hard work on the Facebook page, and I want to thank Amy, Sarah, and Danny for their hard work on the Members Only Lounge as moderators.
And thanks to the Red Rock Hot Club and Gordon Johnston for the use of their music.
And thanks to our Patreon donors for their generous donations. If you'd like to be a part of keeping this thing afloat, please go to thankgodimatheist.com and click on the Patreon pay button. And that's how you can do that.
And thank you, dear listener, for listening.
We sure do appreciate it when you do.
Bye-bye.